And we are here. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. I, of course, am your host, Tyler Lopes. If you have not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. Also, hit that bell icon so you never miss any one of my videos. And please like and share this video so you can help the podcast grow. And please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Lopes Goes Last podcast on Facebook and at Lopes Goes Last on Twitter. So, if you saw the title of the video, or you're just looking at the screen right now, you will know that what I'm going to be doing this week is the first NFL mock draft of the season. Well, at least the first full one-round NFL mock draft of the season. If you guys remember, I did a top 10 pick mock draft a few weeks ago, but this is my first attempt at doing a full 32, or in this year's case, 31 pick mock draft. So, NFL draft is just about, if not exactly, 3 weeks away from today, so, as of time of recording, obviously. So, I wanted to get this out for you guys before we really got into the swing of things, and keep your eye out because I'm going to be doing at least one more of these before the actual draft comes around, and I'm going to try to stretch it out to 2 rounds this year. Not sure I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm going to do what I can. So, as you can see, we got all the picks right here, and then all the prospects right here. So, we're just going to be picking based on what the team needs, where I think prospects should go, everything like that. Obviously, that's how a mock draft works. Now, as you can see over here, I like using PFF.com for these because it actually gives me a little bit of a challenge, because these prospects are, for the most part, I mean, obviously there's some rhyme or reason to it, but a lot of these prospects are just not ranked where they need to be. I mean, and they're really just not. I don't really know what's going on. Why Cam Smith is ranked at 39. I really think that he's going to probably be going, middle, maybe the end of the first round. I really don't understand what's going on. Jalen Hyatt ranked number 77. That is just crazy to me. But either way, we're going to do the best we can. And another thing that's going to give me a challenge is, yes, I like it because it gives me the team needs. But as you can see, I know I'm kind of scrolling through quickly here, but I would say the vast majority of teams, their first need is either quarterback, wide receiver, or both, if, obviously, first and second need. So, I'll say this, I can almost guarantee you that 2/3 of the NFL, their first need is not quarterback or wide receiver. I'm just putting it out there. But for whatever reason, PFF has pretty much every team, including the Kansas City Chiefs, including the Philadelphia Eagles having their number one need as wide receiver. Okay, like there's just things that I just don't understand. Now there are some teams where that's necessary, right? Like the Ravens, yeah, I'd say you probably need wide receiver. I don't know how wide receiver's not on the Patriots one right now. I understand that they made some moves. Tennessee, that I think that makes some sense. And Houston just needs everything under the sun. But, there's some teams where it makes sense, but I think a lot of it doesn't. So that might not even really help me today. So we're just going to kind of go with the flow. We're going to see how it goes. But let's jump right into it here. So obviously, trading up to the number 1 pick is the Carolina Panthers. Oh, and by the way, there's not going to be any trades in this. It's just going to get way too convoluted and crazy. I'm going to hopefully be doing at least a first round or 1 round mock draft with trades before the NFL draft rolls around. But for now, we're just going to stick to straight picks all the way through, which obviously will not happen in real life. There's going to be more trades. I personally think that Indianapolis needs to trade up with Houston to pick at number 2 because I just think they desperately need a quarterback, and I already know who I'm going to take at Indy here, and it's going to be a quarterback, but it's going to be a reach, at least in my opinion, if they do go where I'm going to say they're going to go. But they really desperately need a quarterback, so I can understand the reach there. So sit back, relax. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Let's jump right into it. So the Carolina Panthers, there's a lot of talk. Are they going to take Bryce Young? Are they going to take C.J. Stroud? And listen, those of you who know me, you know I'm an Ohio State fan. Big fan of C.J. Stroud. So this might surprise you, but I am going to go Bryce Young. So Bryce Young, for me, I do think that he's the best quarterback in the draft. C.J. Stroud, fantastic at Ohio State, has a pretty big arm, great accuracy. He's won a ton of games, put up a ton of counting stats It's been awesome to watch, but I think Bryce Young just has more big game experience. And I think, quite frankly, for Carolina, I think that he's the perfect fit over there. A guy that's going to step right in, almost like, his fellow former Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts has done in Philadelphia. He's going to step right in and he's going to be able to lead that locker room with experience, with obviously just a good work ethic. And everything that I've heard about the young man is that he's a real stand-up guy. So Bryce Young at number 1. Would I be surprised if they went CJ Stroud? Absolutely not. I definitely can see all the reasons why. And I think, quite frankly, they're 1A. I don't even know if 1A and 1B qualifies, because I feel like that's even too much of a gap between the two, just 1A and 1B. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's CJ Stroud, but right now I'm going to go Bryce Young with the number 1 pick in the draft to the Panthers. Now, at pick number 2, as I said, I think that Indianapolis should trade up with Houston, and I definitely think Houston should trade back, even if it's not with Indianapolis. But I think the two teams to gain the most out of trading up with Houston would be obviously Indianapolis, and then maybe if Tennessee has the stones to do it and take a quarterback at this point, and they don't trust Malik Willis to be their guy going forward. But I understand. I think maybe Malik Willis is probably going to be your guy for at least this year, so you're probably not going to draft a quarterback barring anybody falling like crazy. So I am going to stick with Houston at number 2, obviously, for this mock draft. As I said, there's no trades, so I'm going to go CJ Stroud here at number 2. I know that there's some rumblings that Houston might not take a quarterback if they stay there. I don't think that's a great idea. I could understand if you wanted to take Will Anderson. I think Will Anderson is probably the best player overall in this draft. I think he's a better prospect, and I think he might be not necessarily more impactful, because quarterback is the most impactful position in football, but I think that, pound for pound in terms of ranking in the NFL, I could see Will Anderson being among the top pass rushers in football within a year or two. So I can understand maybe taking Will Anderson, but I think you just desperately need to trade down, get more picks. You already have pick 12 down here if you're Houston, so I just think that it makes the most sense to continue to trade down, because you don't just need one position. You need pretty much every position. You need depth and you need talent if you're Houston. So continue to trade down and make it work that way. But for this, obviously no trade, so we're sticking with it. We're going CJ Stroud at number 2. I think if they do stay at number 2, a quarterback is the only way to go. Otherwise, it's just not going to make sense, at least for me. Arizona, not even going to hesitate with this one. Will Anderson, best player in the draft. I think if you're Arizona, I think you need a lot more than just Will Anderson at this point. I think your quarterback situation is getting murky, more murky as time goes along. With Kyler Murray really not stepping up and being the leader that I think we all wanted him to be, and a lot of us expected him to be when he was taken number 1 overall. But you know what? He's still young. There's still time. I think he definitely needs some more help at the wide receiver position. You obviously still have DeAndre Hopkins, but it looks like, he might get traded this offseason. You let Christian Kirk go, and he had a career year in Jacksonville. So, he needs more help, and he definitely needs more help on the offensive line. But I think it's too high to take an offensive lineman here. Even somebody like Peter Skoronski, who I think is going to be fantastic, it's a little too early. So I'm going to go Will Anderson here. Indianapolis at 4. I'm going with Will Levis out of Kentucky. And I know I said earlier, it's going to be a bit of a reach. Most mock drafts are having 3 or 4 quarterbacks go within the top 10 picks. And I understand why that is. But I think Will Levis and Anthony Richardson both are just such big project quarterbacks right now. And I feel like if you're going to take a quarterback top 5, you are expecting them to start year 1, unless you have somebody who is very, very successful and you just happen to be lucky by getting the 3rd pick, a la the San Francisco 49ers a couple years ago, who Jimmy G led them to the Super Bowl, and then they had the 3rd pick in the draft, a year or 2 years later, whatever it was, and they ended up taking Trey Lance as a developmental quarterback to take them into the future, as Jimmy G's injuries kept piling up, his age kept piling up. So I definitely understand why they did that and then didn't start him. So barring any kind of issue like that you would have, maybe not issue, but situation like that, I think if you're going to draft a quarterback top 5, you are telling the world that this is your guy. And, I would even say that for first round quarterbacks in general. But if you're taking them later in the first round, I can understand why you're not going to play them right away. But I think for Indianapolis, I think right now their best quarterback is Gardner Minshew on their roster. Just not good. If you're Indianapolis, if you're drafting a quarterback at number 4 and you can't beat out Gardner Minshew, no offense to Gardner Minshew, but I don't know what to tell you there. So I think if you do draft a quarterback here, it has to be a guy that you're going to start right away. And I just don't think that. I really just don't think that Will Levis is ready to start right away. I don't think Anthony Richardson is ready to start right away. I think they each need at least a year to sit behind a quarterback and learn, get their accuracy under control, learn a new system, all that kind of stuff. But given what they have, Will Levis, I think, is the pick for Indianapolis here. Seattle at number 5. Obviously, they need interior offensive line very, very badly. I think if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said quarterback would have probably been the best thing for them. But at this point, I don't anticipate them going with any kind of quarterback prospect, even with Geno Smith getting up there in age a little bit after his career year. I just don't see it at all. This is a tough one because, their biggest needs as a team, you might need more weapons, quite frankly, over there in Seattle. But, I think it's probably too high for that. Jalen Carter would have been my pick had Jalen Carter not gone through all these issues. And they could take Jalen Carter because they definitely need a guy who's going to be able to stop the run and be a force up the middle because their run defense was atrocious last year. Kalijah Cansey, I don't know why he's rated this high. I don't think he's going to be going. I think he might go in the late first round. I don't know why he's ranked so high here, but it's too early for him, I'd say. So I could definitely see somebody like a Myles Murphy off the edge. There's another edge player that I'm completely blanking on at the moment that Tyree Wilson. There you go. So Tyree Wilson, I could see that. I don't know why I forgot Tyree Wilson. He's a fantastic player at Texas Tech. I don't know why I blanked there. But, so I think that you don't necessarily need pass rush. I think you just more need run stoppers. So I don't know if you want to do that in the first round. So this is the first tough pick for me. But I am going to kind of reach a little bit and go Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. I think that he is the best offensive lineman in the draft. Not by a crazy wide margin because Paris Johnson out of The Ohio State University is very, very good. But I think that Skoronski is a guy that I think gives you flexibility. I think that, if your offensive line isn't good enough, I think that you can never have enough talent on the offensive line, even if you don't necessarily need a tackle. So I'm going to go Peter Skoronski here. I think they just really desperately need offensive line help. And so they get it here in round number 1 at number 5. Detroit. I know that this says that they need wide receiver and tight end. I think tight end they do need, but I think obviously it'd be a big reach to go tight end at number 6. And I don't think wide receiver is their biggest need because they do have Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that because they have a pick at 18, I think that's probably where you address wide receiver for the value. So here, I am going to go with a pick that I kind of just said that I could see Jalen Carter going here, but he's gone through all this stuff. But you know what? I'm going to take a flyer, and I'm going to say Jalen Carter at number 6. And the reason why is because Dan Campbell loves his dogs over there in Detroit. He loves his defensive weapons, and I think Jalen Carter up the middle fits a team need. They definitely need some big guys up the middle to help beef up that defense. Jalen Carter fits the bill. I don't know if he's going to go this high in the draft. He might not. I just think that I wouldn't be surprised if they went with him at 6 and Dan Campbell said, I don't care what's happened. He's the guy. He's going to be a game wrecker for you. And you know what? I get it. So, yeah, I contradicted myself. Fine. Call me out. That's okay. But I think Jalen Carter is the pick here at number 6. Number 7 to the Raiders. And again, quarterback, could definitely see that here. Anthony Richardson is available. Certainly can understand that 100%. But I'm going to actually go Myles Murphy out of Clemson. I don't know what it is. When I watch Myles Murphy, I just feel like he's a Raider already. They need some more help with pass rush. They've got Chandler Jones, obviously, and I am seriously blanking on the way better pass rusher that they have. And I can see his face, but I'm not coming up with it, guys. I'm just not coming up with it. You know who I'm talking about. You're screaming at me, and I can't hear you. So that's what's happening here. Max, really? Max, it's something Max. Hang on a minute. Don't go anywhere. I'm looking it up because it's driving me nuts. Max Crosby. There it is. Max Crosby. I'm sorry. I don't know why I went brain dead there. But you obviously have Max Crosby. You have Chandler Jones. But Crosby needs some help on that defensive line. And their defense was not very good last year. I could certainly see linebacker. I could certainly see defensive back. Again, quarterback makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to go Myles Murphy here at number 7. Pick 8, the Atlanta Falcons. They need a lot. They're another team that really does not have a ton of talent in any area. And again, sorry Falcons fans, I know you've heard that from me before, but for me, I just feel like it's very true. And so I'm going to go Tyree Wilson here. I know edge is a need. You guys need some more help on the pass rush side. Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, very, very good. Had a great season last year. You don't go top 10 out of Texas Tech by accident. I mean, just ask Patrick Mahomes. So it's one of those things where I just think that he would fit in Atlanta very, very well. I think that he fits their scheme very, very well. And other than Grady Jarrett, they have not really had a lot of help on that defensive line since they made their Super Bowl run. And even then, they didn't really have a whole ton back then anyways. So Tyree Wilson's really going to help out that pass rush over there in Atlanta. Chicago at number 9. They obviously traded back from number 1 with the Panthers here. So I think that this is one of those scenarios where you just desperately need a lot of help on a lot of different areas. I think, I don't understand why wide receiver is not on here. Out of every team, that doesn't have wide receiver, I don't know how it's not Chicago. I think you really, really need some talent. For me, you can go in a lot of different ways. Obviously, every wide receiver is still on the board here. Paris Johnson is still on the board. Broderick Jones is on the board. So there are a lot of different ways that we can go here. And I think, honestly, if this is kind of how the board falls, I wouldn't be surprised to see Chicago try to trade back again. Perhaps with a team that's kind of going all in, or wanting to really go all in like the Chargers. Maybe the Jaguars want to kind of move up and get aggressive. I could say maybe the Eagles. Obviously, I think they have 2 picks. Yep, they have 2 first-round picks. I wouldn't be surprised if they used one of them to move up here. If they have a guy that they really want. But for me, I think that at this point you cannot pass on Devin Witherspoon. I think that I said Will Anderson is the best player in the draft. Devin Witherspoon is my favorite player in the draft. He's absolutely phenomenal. He ran 4.39 in his pro day. He's obviously, he's like 6'4", something like that. He's just a huge dude. He's fantastic. I love Devin Witherspoon, and I would love to see him fall to the Patriots at 14. I know it's never going to happen, but I think at this point, if you're Chicago and he falls this far, if this is how the board kind of shakes up, I would not be surprised to see them go Devin Witherspoon here. I think if you are Chicago, this is kind of just a best player available scenario at this point. So definitely great pick for Chicago, at least in my opinion. We'll see if they get that lucky in real life. But on to the Eagles. So, again, interior offensive line, they say they need center, but Jason Kelsey's coming back. You're not getting a center at this point. They say they need defensive line, but I'm pretty sure they had like the most productive defensive line in football last year. So I really don't know. Again, it's one of these things where I just don't know where they're getting this from, quite frankly. Again, Don't get it at all. Very, very weird. So I think that there's several different ways you can go. And they say they need wide receiver when they had one of the best wide receiver duos in football. Again, I don't get it. I don't understand how that is your feeling about what they need. Doesn't make sense to me at all. But moving on from that, I think that there's several different ways. I love Lucas Van Ness for them out of Iowa. I think that makes a lot of sense. Brian Branch, I think this might be a bit of a reach for him, but I think he fits a really big need over there. They need safety. They need defensive. They need defensive back help. You could definitely go Christian Gonzalez. There's a bunch of different ways that you can go here. I don't think they'd go Joey Porter at this point. I think that's a bit of a reach. And if you really wanted to keep going on the offensive line, Broderick Jones is still here. So, yeah, I mean, it just... And I think Paris Johnson, is still here as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go. But I think I may have made a decision on this, and this is going to maybe kind of make some people question, and that's fine. But I'm going to go Bijan Robinson. And I think that if you are the Eagles, I think at this point, you're picking at number 10 in the draft, and you're really, really looking to just get some more talent, and I think you can get a pretty good wide receiver or guard or center prospect, just interior offensive line in general, or safety at 30. I don't think that you have to reach at number 9, or is it 10 or 9? 10 for somebody like that. But I'll tell you what, I think that if you are the Eagles, you want to continue to have the best running game in football. You've got your quarterback. You've got your 2 wide receivers. You've got a reasonably good, if not fantastic, offensive line that you're probably going to continue to improve upon at this point. I think that the linebackers in this draft are better suited for rounds 2 and 3. So I think at this point, maybe you're kind of neglecting a little bit of team need, but a lot of teams will not take team needs just because they need it. They will take best player available or highest player on their board. And I think Bijan Robinson should be a top player on everybody's board. Now, I am not the biggest fan, never have been, of taking running backs this high. But if you listen to me closely when I've said unless you are a team that is already competing and that has players and talent at every other position, or at least close to it, and you've got an absolute stud ready to go, and you're just picking that high in the draft that you can get them. And this is exactly that scenario. So this is the exception I'm going to make. The Eagles, I think Bijan Robinson would be such a great fit in that offense. And I think you can work on the other things at a different point. You can, your defensive backs are fine. Your DBs, your corners are fine. I think safety is good at number 30. And then work on your offensive line if you need to, and your linebackers later in the draft. I think that makes sense. Or, obviously, if you're a Super Bowl contender, there's going to be releases throughout the season. I think you can work on it then, too. So I think Bijan Robinson, honestly, is something I could see really happening in real life if the Eagles stick at 10. Pick 11, a team that probably won't be very sad to see Bijan Robinson go. Obviously, the team that has Derrick Henry. And I think at this point, you're Tennessee. You are thanking your lucky stars, and you are just, you're praising, in my life, God, but, in your life, whoever else you feel like you need to be thanking, because Anthony Richardson has fallen to you at 11, and I think if he falls this far, Tennessee's going to jump all over it, because let's be honest, I don't think they believe in Malik Willis all that much, that he's definitely their guy, to the point where if something like this happens, they're not going to jump all over it. Definitely could see this being where the first wide receiver of the draft is taken, and I think that a lot of Tennessee fans would either be, I think you'd really split them down the middle. They'd either be thrilled or they'd be really angry that this happened. So, but I think that if Anthony Richardson falls to 11, I think Tennessee should jump on it, because they just need to get Ryan Tannehill the heck out of there. And I don't think Malik Willis is the guy that they believe in long term. So you play Malik Willis this year, or you stick with Ryan Tannehill this year. You try and rebuild as best you can, and let Anthony Richardson sit for a little bit before taking over full time. Houston back on the clock here at number 12, and I think at this point, they're pretty happy. They've got CJ Stroud, and now they're picking again here at 12, and you still got a pick of the litter as to who you really want. You can protect your quarterback. You can get them a weapon. You could really do whatever you want if you are Houston. However, I do think that they have a top second-round pick where I think that wide receiver would be better suited at this point, or safety, or offensive line. So I'm going to go with who I think is one of the best players available, and I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. I think that at this point, it makes a lot of sense for him to go. They don't necessarily need corner as pressing of a need as a lot of other things, but as I've said, you kind of want to take the best player available a lot of times in these drafts. So Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, he's the number 2 DB in the draft, unless I'm missing somebody completely. So I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez here for Houston. And plus, let's be honest, Houston has kind of a track record of, even if you guys don't think this is a great pick, they have a track record of not necessarily going with the player that they might 100% need in favor of somebody else. So Christian Gonzalez wouldn't be surprised with his tool set going to Houston. New York Jets on the clock here. They need a lot of different things here, but offensive line is the number one thing that they need at this point, outside of quarterback, considering the Aaron Rodgers stuff has not gone through yet. But lucky for them, Paris Johnson is still available. I think it's a seamless fit. Paris Johnson at number 13 makes a ton of sense. I definitely could see them going with a Lucas Van Ness to beef up that defense, or somebody like even a Nolan Smith, who is listed at edge. I feel like he's more of a linebacker, but whatever. So yeah, Paris Johnson at number 13. I think it fits seamlessly for the Jets. And the Patriots here, I think that they would be kicking themselves if the Jets take Paris Johnson. I feel like that's probably where they would want to go if that option was available to them. And looking at the tackles on the board, definitely Broderick Jones I think makes sense at the spot if you're willing to reach a little bit. They reached obviously for Cole Strange last year, but I think at this point I'm going to just do this just because I feel like I would just love this in real life. But Jackson Smith-Njigba, he is my favorite wide receiver in the draft. Like I've said before, I'm an Ohio State fan. I think that him and why am I blanking on his name, out of Tennessee? Seriously, what's wrong? Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee are, as I bring up Josh Downs on accident, my apologies, guys. I think that they are neck and neck as to wide receiver 1 in this draft for me, or at least talent-wise. Obviously, Quentin Johnson out of TCU is very, very good as well. But for me, I think it's Jackson Smith-Njigba or it's Jalen Hyatt. And for me, Jackson Smith-Njigba checks all the boxes as to what you would want out of a number 1 wide receiver if you're New England. He's big, he's fast, he can go down the field, he gets open, he's got great hands. He made a ton of catches and a ton of big plays at the Ohio State. So, yeah, Jackson Smith-Njigba I think is a perfect fit for New England. And if he's still there at 14, which he might not be, but if he's still there at 14, I would love for the Patriots to take a swing and get Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 14. Green Bay Packers, another team that needs wide receiver here. Makes a lot of sense for them to go wide receiver, but I'm actually going to go Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. So yeah, or Michael Mayer, excuse me. I don't know why I said Michael Myers, apparently. Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. I think that he really just is another big weapon for them. And Jordan Love is probably going to be your quarterback at this point. Again, Aaron Rodgers hasn't been traded. So if everything stays the same, Aaron Rodgers is going to still be on the Packers next year. Now, who knows what happens if that goes down. But Michael Mayer, I think, is tight end 1 in this draft. Again, you make the argument for Dalton Kincaid as well, but I like Michael Mayer a little bit more. I think he's a bit higher of a ceiling as a pass catcher. Made a ton of big plays at Notre Dame. So Michael Mayer at number 15. Washington Commanders. This is one where, now this is kind of where it starts to really go downhill because, a lot of these teams really, really need quarterbacks, but they're not going to get one probably, at least, for these next few. I think even Pittsburgh probably still needs quarterback, even though they took Kenny Pickett last year, but he didn't really do a whole lot. I think that Detroit needs a new quarterback. I think that Tampa needs a new quarterback. So definitely with these picks, you need quarterback. But as you can see, there's not really any quarterbacks that are, supposed to go. And I've seen Hendon Hooker go in first rounds in some mock drafts. Don't necessarily agree with that. So obviously, quarterback is not a thing for these teams. And I think that a lot of these teams just need positions that are not the best fit for them right now. So with these, I'm just going to kind of have to go with, again, best player available. What I think makes the most sense for the team. And so right here, I obviously went, we're going offensive weapons here. I am going to take a swing, and I'm going to go Jalen Hyatt here for the Commanders. Because obviously you got Scary Terry over there, and they drafted another kid last year. I can see his face, but I'm blanking on it. I'm not gonna look it up because it doesn't matter. But you've got some decent weapons out there in Washington, but I think you'd be reaching if you're taking a quarterback here for sure. And I think the offensive line prospects at this point are not necessarily what you need. So Jalen Hyatt here, again, I think one of the best players available right now at number 16. Pittsburgh. I think that this is a perfect spot because they need tackle and they need it bad. They just need offensive line help. But I'm not going to do that. And the reason is because there's another guy that I really want them to take because I just think it'd be a great story. And where is he? I saw him earlier. You guys will know who there he is. Joey Porter Jr. Obviously his father, Joey Porter, a great Steeler. And I think that you need defensive back really badly if you are Pittsburgh. And I think if anybody knows the Steeler culture, it's going to be Joey Porter Jr. So I think out of Penn State, Joey Porter Jr. is where they should go with this. Detroit here at number 18. Obviously, they picked earlier, and they got Jalen Carter. I think that was a really, really good pick at that point. I think that it makes a lot of sense. But right now, I think that for the Lions, they just need some more help on the offensive side of the ball. So really, anybody that you can come up with here, I think would be a good pick. I think Zay Flowers out of Boston College would be a great pick. I think Jordan Addison's a good pick, but I'm going to go Quentin Johnson here out of TCU. He's fast, he's big, and I just think that he is going to really add a dynamic to the Detroit offense that they don't have at this point. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not necessarily an outside receiver. Quentin Johnson can be that for the Lions. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team that needs a lot of help. And I'm going to go with Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa here. I think that for the Buccaneers, you need a lot on offense and you need a lot on defense. And one pick's really not going to help at this point. I think that they're in a scenario where all the big contracts that they dished out over the last 3 years to win a Super Bowl, which obviously is worth it because they did win one, they're going to come back to bite them, much like the Rams did. So I think, kind of trying to find guys that are, going to stick around for a while and that are going to be of positional value over time, I think makes the most sense here. I think wide receiver, you're okay. Obviously, Baker Mayfield at quarterback, it's not the worst scenario you could have. It's not the best either, but certainly not the worst place that you could be in. And I think that their team at this point just needs a lot of help. They've lost a lot of people in free agency, and they've got a lot of guys that are getting older that have been, staples of that defense. For instance, a Levante David or somebody like that's they're getting older, and so I think Lucas Van Ness is a guy that can come in and be productive and very, very reliable early on and consistently throughout. So that is the pick at number 19. Number 20, Seattle. I do believe that they picked earlier. Yes, they got Peter Skoronski. So obviously at this point, a tackle would not be, because Broderick Jones is obviously very tempting at this point because he's fallen this far. So I think that at this point, if you're wanting to maybe, I can understand maybe going with a defensive lineman here. So let's take a look at what we have. Nothing really that I think that they should go with at this point. Brian Breesy's okay. I think that they might do that if he's available. But for me, again, it's gonna be one of these scenarios where it's best players available, and so I am going to go with Nolan Smith. Don't again necessarily need much pass rush if you are the Seattle Seahawks, but I think that Mr. Smith gives you the best possible scenario where I think it makes the most sense here. Obviously you could see his grades here. Just kind of giving you some, different looks here, and I think that I don't know why he's really listed at edge. I think he's more of a linebacker. You can see his size, 6'2", 238. I think that is way too small to be an every down, put your hand in the dirt pass rusher. So I feel like he's probably, gonna be more of an off-ball linebacker. I mean, you can literally see it wasn't a single starting NFL edge defender listed at under 240 pounds. And he is it. Now, on tape, he's a good pass rusher, and I think situationally it makes sense. But I think that you obviously need linebacker help too if you are Seattle. So I think that he's a good scheme and kind of hybrid fit for Seattle here, even though it might not be the best fit. Either way, we're going to go with it at number 20. Skipping to the Chargers, obviously, because the Dolphins forfeited their first-round pick this year. At number 21, I think that you're kicking yourself. I feel like you'd really want Nolan Smith if he was there, if you were the Chargers. But I am going to go, I feel like at this point, you've got to go with the best defensive back available. Cam Smith out of South Carolina fits that bill for me. Cam Smith, fantastic on tape, had a really good pro day, had a really, really good training camp. What is the combine? There it is. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really just spaced out tonight, so forgive me for kind of being all over the place here and tripping over my words. But Cam Smith, I think, is a great fit for them. Obviously, J.C. Jackson's coming back from injury, so they're going to get some more reinforcements out there. You picked Asante Samuel Jr. last year, so I think that Cam Smith in the first round is really going to shore up that secondary that just bled last year. So that's a good pick for me, I think, at number 21. Pick number 22. Here at this point, if you're Baltimore, you're doing anything you can to try and keep Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. So I'm gonna go Zay Flowers here, out of Boston College. Another one of my favorite players in the draft. I think that. I feel like if the Patriots took him at number 14, it'd be a great story. And I know that he visited them today, which is really, really fun. I just don't know if it'd be the best value. I don't think he's the best wide receiver in the draft. But I think at this point, you've got to get some more weapons for Lamar Jackson. Outside of Rashad Bateman, they have nothing going on offense other than Mark Andrews. So Zay Flowers here helps kind of fill out that wide receiver room in Baltimore. Minnesota. This is another one where, I feel like a lot of guys are getting older. A lot of guys are, starting to, regress a little bit in their careers. You had a great year last year, but you lost in the first round of the playoffs. You lost a lot of close games. And I would love for them to trade up and take a quarterback. But I just don't think it's going to happen, and it's obviously not happening here. So I'm going to go Brian Branch out of Alabama. I think he's very, very versatile. He's a guy that can play multiple positions, do multiple different things. He can cover all different positions, and he's a thumper too. So I feel like Brian Branch is going to be kind of your Harrison Smith replacement in a couple of years, because Harrison Smith is getting up there in age, guys. He's not going to be phenomenal forever. So Brian Branch at number 23. Again, another one where it's kind of best case scenario, or at least best player available outside of Broderick Jones, who just continues to fall. But spoiler alert, he's not going to fall anymore. Broderick Jones at number 24. I know you don't necessarily need tackle if you are Jacksonville, but please, if Broderick Jones falls to 24, you're taking him if you're Jacksonville. He's the best player available. You can kick somebody inside, or you can kick Broderick Jones inside. Whatever you feel like you need to do, you're not going to let him continue to slide. He's the best player available. He's a early to mid first round grade right now, and he falls you at 24. I think that it's a no-brainer for Jacksonville, and they're going to continue to dominate these drafts. The New York Giants had a fantastic offseason. I definitely cannot wait to see it all play on the field and see kind of what it looks like. And I feel like they would have loved Brian Branch. I feel like that's about as perfect of a fit as you can get. So for me, looking at kind of defensive back, there's not a whole ton that you would really go for here. Keely Ringo, I don't know why he's rated so low. Maybe you go with Keely Ringo here. I'm not sure that that would entice you at this point, considering it's not your biggest need. And I don't think wide receiver is going to do it either. Jordan Addison and Josh Downs are here. So maybe you take a shot on one of those two. But I'm not going to do that. I am actually going to go with Osiris Torrance out of Florida. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. And I think you spent a lot of your time building up the tackles and of your offense, and now I think you really need to shore up the inside of that offensive line. You get Saquon Barkley some more help, and I think it's honestly, I think at this point, maybe wide receiver makes some sense for the Giants, but I feel like Osiris Torrance, I feel like guard is another big position of need for them. And again, you take a look at the wide receivers. You've got 4, maybe even 5, if you're counting Rashee Rice out of SMU, as guys that are probably going to go, second round. So for me, I feel like you have a better chance of getting one of these guys in the second round than reaching for one here. So let's go with that. Osiris Torrance at number 25. Number 26, the Cowboys. They obviously have a lot of different needs here, and I think that you might go with Brian Breezy here on the defensive line. I think it makes a ton of sense. But I'm gonna go a little bit of a different route here, and they're gonna replace one Dalton at tight end with another. Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. Dalton Schultz, I believe, was franchise tagged, if I remember correctly, or maybe he's even gone at this point from the Cowboys. But either way, Dalton Kincaid I think is a really, really good fit here for the Cowboys here late in the first round at number 26. Buffalo, they need a defensive back very badly. I mean, that's just what they need. And honestly, it's really strange that they got that correct, because they really don't need much else. Maybe you need, some better running backs, but you're not going to get that here. So I am going to go Keely Ringo here for the Buffalo Bills. I think he's a perfect fit. Again, I don't know why he's rated so low here. I think he's definitely going to be a first, maybe early second round guy, but I would be shocked if he was available if the Bills passed on him here at number 27. Number 28 is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, and they definitely need tight ends, so I'm sure they're hating the fact that Dalton Kincaid is gone. But Brian Breezy is available, and Will McDonald is available too. Oh boy. That is difficult. No, I'm going to stick to my gut. I'm going to go Brian Breezy here. Will McDonald, definitely could see it happening. If those two were available, I'm sure you'd be thrilled if you're Cincinnati, because you really have the pick of the litter between the two of them. Whichever one they have rated higher, I'd completely understand. I think that they're very similar players. So yeah, I'll go with Brian Breezy here at number 28. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. So this is another interesting one that I'm not super sure where I want to go with this. For me, I think Jack Campbell out of Iowa might be a decent fit, but they don't necessarily need linebacker too badly. I just know that their linebackers are going to be getting up there in age. You really desperately need interior offensive line, but you're not going to get that here. I mean, obviously, these aren't the best grades in the world. I just accidentally hit the wrong one. I know these aren't the best grades in the world, but, I think this tells you something here. I mean, you just don't have a lot of interior offensive linemen that are rated super high. So I think at this point, you're going to have to probably go with the best player available. And, I don't even really know who's the best player available at this point. Jahmyr Gibbs I like, but obviously you have Alvin Kamara. So this is a kind of a difficult one for me. So I'm going to go out and I'm just going to say, Will McDonald, I think, is a guy that I think if you were to take the best player available at this point, maybe you go with Will McDonald. The Eagles at number 30. So obviously, we talked about earlier, right? The Eagles, you have other needs, obviously, at this point. You have interior offensive line needs. You have defensive line needs. You have all these different things that you need. And I think that it makes the most sense to go defensive line here. And if you're going to do that, even though I do think that they have a really good defensive line, so you know what? I've talked myself out of it. We're not going to go defensive line. We're going to see what the we're going to kind of see what the defensive backs have to offer, and there's not a ton here. I don't. Yeah, I don't love it. So this is a tough one for me here. This isn't this. I'm not kidding, guys. This is definitely a tough one for me. But I can see, I can see them reaching. I can see them reaching for a safety here. And for me, I think I like Jordan Battle out of Alabama quite a bit. I don't think I've actually had this much trouble with a pick before, because all the best players available are positions that you don't really need. Kalijah Cansey is still there. Yeah, well, we'll go with Kalijah Cansey. I might not necessarily think that they need defensive line all that bad, but they did lose some defensive players to free agency this year, so we'll go Kalijah Cansey. I probably overthought that one a whole lot, so I apologize, you guys, for that, but yeah, so we'll go with Kalijah Cansey at number 30, and then, the Chiefs, you definitely need wide receiver, and taking a look here, Jordan Addison and Josh Downs are still available, and just kind of looking at the two here, he's 5'11", 173. I feel like he is not. I'm not going to compare him to Tyreek Hill. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. However, he is a much better route runner than Tyreek Hill when he came out of college, and obviously similar builds. So I think Jordan Addison actually is an adequate kind of substitute at this point for the Chiefs. So that is my mock draft. Sorry it was a little bit disjointed, guys. Like I told you, I am really having a kind of a difficult time thinking tonight, and obviously this is not cooperating with me, but there you go. So anyways, thank you guys so very much for joining me for this mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.
Hey guys, me again. I just want to say thank you so much for checking out the Lopes Goes Last podcast. It means the world to me that you decided to stick all the way to the end. That's super cool. So thank you again. And if you really, really like what you see, I'd love for you to subscribe, like the video, and share it with all your family and friends, because, this is my passion project. This is what I love to do, and I really want the sucker to grow. And the only way that can happen is through you guys, is if you guys can help me out. So again, if you like what you saw, please subscribe, like the video, share with all your friends and family. That's the only way this is going to grow. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.